That's fine.
I want to say hello to everyone this evening. Good to see everybody out this evening. To the council, we're getting ready to start our work session, and we will, as you know, have our regular meeting at 6:30. Our honorable mayor could not be here tonight. He may be commuting here now, I don't know, but at this point he's not here, so we're going to go ahead and move forward with our meeting tonight. In our work session, let's tonight just follow usually the mayor's protocol of what we normally do. So we're going to follow that as we usually do, and we're going to start with the attorney tonight.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any updates.
Okay, let's start with Reggie. We'll start with you on that end.
I don't have anything, sir.
Dr. Reggie. Bill?
Just what's on the agenda.
Agenda.
Same. What's on the agenda.
Okay. Seth?
No, I don't have anything.
Seth? Chief?
I think most of you know, but our SRO unit, the case unit, those 7 gentlemen won the SRO Unit of the Year award at the TASRO, the Alabama SRO conference. And Attorney General Marshall presented them with that award. And for the first, not even a full year of doing that program, for those guys to be recognized statewide, I think is monumental. They're a fantastic group, and I'm optimistic we're going to keep the 7 of them together for next year too. We went to dinner last night, and I told them that if they didn't do that, we weren't going to pay for their food. So I think we're going to be able to keep them together. And I've told some of you in person before, but this past year, I had very few calls or complaints from our schools like I typically have had in the past. It had reduced it a great deal, and we all know we still have problems, but I think those guys are doing a monumental job to address it, and we're very lucky to have attracted such a good group of professionals.
Thank you, Chief. That's good news. Chief Kendrick?
No, sir, I don't have anything.
Library?
Just that we started summer reading today, and we had a great turnout, and the calendar is posted on our Facebook page and also is being shared by the city. And we have an event tomorrow night. We have painting at 5:30 with Meg Boyette at the library.
Okay. That happens. Good happens. Okay, I guess that covered all department heads. Then we have reports from our council. We're going to start with Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. First off, I'm asking the council to consider adding more approved holidays for the use of fireworks in our city. Currently, we have the 4th of July and New Year's holiday, and I would like for our legal counsel to provide us an amended ordinance that includes Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Veterans Day, as approved holidays for the use of fireworks in our city. And for the mayor and council to review and approve this at our next council meeting. Also, we're welcoming that new business off of the airport exit, that's TNT Fireworks. And I believe this amendment will show good faith approval of TNT Fireworks to our city as a new brick and mortar business, as well as give our growing community more opportunities to celebrate the history of our bravery and our freedom. So Grace, could you possibly have that ready for us at our next meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks. Also, an agenda item, Bill, the paving report. Now, we have a price proposal from Central Alabama Asphalt and Construction Company out of Tuscaloosa. Were they the only construction company that replied to our request for bids for quotes?
We haven't sent out requests for bids until the money's appropriated. So once the money's appropriated, we'll send out request for proposals or request for bids on that.
So explain to me what we're looking at, that proposal from, what is that?
That's an estimate of
Okay, so that's, we get only estimates from one contractor, from one construction
it.
company?
No, we'll ask for, depending on the cost, the total estimated cost, we'll ask for a minimum of 3. But depending on the total cost, it might actually go to a public bid. So we haven't asked for every cost on that just yet, but we will before we select the contractor.
Oh, okay, and one other question for you.
Mhm.
Do you have an update on the traffic count study at 16 and 31?
The area DOT has sent their recommendations to the regional DOT. I think that was probably 2 weeks ago. So, pretty optimistic that they'll hopefully give us the green light on that.
Okay, so you don't have any idea of getting that update on that?
No, I mean, regions had, like I said, area replied back, I think it was probably about 2 weeks ago. I can go back and look, but they said that they sent their recommendations to the regional office, so they didn't deny it. And we typically have pretty good relationships with the regional office, so it's favorable, pretty favorable that they'll approve it.
Oh, great. Okay, well, we look forward to getting that information. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Tonight, on the agenda is the property that we own in Columbiana, we're possibly selling that. I think at the last meeting, it was mentioned that the funds may go into the general budget. Is there a way that we can actually earmark these funds to something other so that the council can look at the money and see how the money could be best spent to benefit the most citizens of Wheeler? Can we earmark those funds?
I do not know what there hasn't, what about that, hear from the attorney on that?
What, are you thinking about using them for a specific purpose?
Well, I'd like for the council to actually get together and decide the best way to spend this money. This is like free money to us, and the best way to benefit from this money, instead of it just going into the general budget. Could we earmark it for a special project that the council could decide on and have time to think about it, that would benefit the citizens of Calera?
Well, I think you can identify it for specific purposes, for sure, in terms of what the council wants to use it for.
Okay, so Connie, is there, if we vote on this and pass this, how could we do that?
We just need to get that motion.
Motion to put it into a special account?
What do you want it? You're basically earmarked for a project.
Earmark
To
for
be decided on at a future date. Because you'll decide the project at a future date.
That's the way we would do that.
I think maybe you could put any funds, any funds obtained through the sale of the property will be held aside in a special fund to be determined how to use those funds at a later date. Some language to that effect. We can look at the resolution. You'd have to amend it. Doesn't have that right now.
But if we are voting on this land, on the sale of this land, then we need to have a resolution before we actually approve the sale of the land.
Well, I think you're approving the sale of the land right now at a certain amount, and then you can probably add to that to set the funds aside, provided the sale goes through.
Okay. That's the only question I have tonight. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just understanding from the attorney, so it just worded along with that resolution 34?
Yeah,
Make that possible.
I think the resolution just approves the sale, right?
Right.
What I looked at. So I think you probably could add to that, be it resolved that any funds obtained from the sale of this property should be set aside pending a decision by the council at a later time for their intended use. Some language to that effect.
Okay. Thank you, so you can bring that forward at that time.
Can I ask another question to the council? Is there, if we vote on this to sell this land tonight, how do you feel about setting it aside in a special account for a later date? Do y'all have any
Comments?
comment?
Well, my comment to that is, and I think I kind of mentioned this the last time. I think this is something that we need to get an appraisal on. That's how I feel about it. We're selling a piece of property. I think it's at tax price, if I'm not mistaken. Do anyone, I mean, if the price of this property was greater than what's being proposed, how do we know? I mean, if either one of us was selling property, I don't think we'll sell it without getting an appraisal on it. So why are we doing any different on this?
That is normal procedure before you sell property, isn't it, no, to get an appraisal? Like he said, when you're selling your own property, if you're selling a house, or if you're buying a house, the appraisal is there in the documents, is included in your documents. I think we should consider that as well.
Any other comments from council? So, well, I mean, even before you move forward with what Councilwoman Brown is asking us, I recommend that we do with the proceeds if the property is sale. So now we're back to where the property may not even sell, be voted on to sell tonight. So I guess that'd be the first thing to decide on. We're gonna wait to do an appraisal, or if we're gonna do that, then we could probably have a resolution, have something in place, some wording in place anyway, to do with the funds if it does sell. So, I guess, of course, we would definitely need enough consent on that roll call vote on that. So if it doesn't pass, then we won't be dealing with that tonight anyway. Anything else, Councilwoman? Calls?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bill, the roads the city hasn't taken over yet, can you provide at some point the subdivisions under construction, the roads that the city hasn't accepted yet? Or we'll know what roads is out there in the city that doesn't belong to the city yet?
Yeah, we've already got that. Yeah,
I don't have it.
well, it's on, I guess, can you push that to the maps? Yeah, we can push that to the website.
If you could push it to the council group. let us
We
know.
push it to the website where anybody can view it.
Basically, we're on the way downtown doing our playground now for our kids, so they've started putting it together, so we're looking at probably the playground being all of it together. We might not be open, but within a couple of weeks, you should see a very nice playground downtown, so it's moving very good, so I'm proud to see that happen for the city. I know most of y'all have seen the lawyer's office has been moved across the road, so at what point, Connie, are we supposed to be able to take that piece of property over? Or is it, at this point, is it June? Okay, so I know there's been a lot of debris left there, so I'll talk with the lawyer about letting him clean up see if he's gonna clean his mess up that's left down. But I think the contract read that we would move in on the piece of property the first of June. If you would, we'll just check on that. Can y'all hear me? I'll get a little louder, my mic isn't working. that's all. Well, sorry if y'all can't hear me, but James, my mic's not working, so when you get a chance, you fix it for me. I guess that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Bill, on the streets that are supposed to be on the listing for paving, are those some of the streets that Chris Pappas had already had on his list to be paved?
No.
Okay, these are something, where are we on the list that he had about 2 years ago?
I don't know of a whole lot of paving that has been done in the last couple of years in the city. That's something as I'm working on the new budget, is to kind of put together some bids for using some of the money to kind of start from the top down on some of those. I've got the ranking list. Now, we've applied for a couple of, well, I'll say a couple, and I've applied for one Rebuild Alabama grant for Whippoorwill, I believe. I don't think I think one of them's been awarded, but I don't think they've all been awarded yet, but.
Wasn't that money already put in the budget
For
those pavement to be taking place 2 years ago?
that, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, there was a little bit of money in there, but I think it was like 200,000, which quite honestly in the paving world doesn't do a whole lot.
Okay, so the funding that's there with the proposal of what you sent out, could that money be used for that purpose?
For which purpose? I don't know what you're saying.
The paving job that we have on the agenda
Uh-huh.
to be done?
There's money in the budget to cover that. Kelly's already covered that. I talked with her before. She said she would be out tonight. So there's money in there from the gas tax that the city receives to pay for this.
Okay, all right. That's all I have for now.
I don't have anything else. Okay, it's just cover everybody. You have plenty of time here. For myself, I know our bill, or I guess you could answer, probably wouldn't have an answer to this, but I know Highway 25 on the east side of town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nothing to do. I cannot believe that. It's a state road, I know, but.
Yeah, we had a meeting not too long ago with District, and that was, we brought up several things, the 16 and 31 light and everything, and several things. That was in their budget to repave this year, and it got scrapped. And local work, they don't have a paving crew. Their district does not have the equipment or the crew to pave. And the last conversation I had with him was they were going to try to pull some folks out of Alex City to come over there and do that. I mean, the district engineer actually drives that road, so he knows how bad it is. I mean, I drive it twice a day, every day. It's pretty bad. But I'll touch base with Tim again and see if they were able to get some folks from Alex City over here to help. They were going, they were going to have to do it in-house. It did not meet funding requirements for a project this year for them. But they were going to try to do something in-house. And I'll see where he stands on getting some help out of Alex City, out of that office.
Be nice, we can get something done there. And another thing I have, Chief Kendrick, I see the new department, fire department is coming on. Looks like it's on target,
That's good. Yes, sir.
looking good. I don't know of anything else around the city that I was thinking also that the parking lot, I know that I saw pouring concrete just maybe last week, and that I guess those drainage areas. So most of that, I guess most everything, say beyond the front entrance for the fire department would just be all parking just for the
There'll be some parking on the front side on Eagle Drive. Then there'll be a circular drive around at the front door. And then there'll be an access off of Highway 25 where the fire trucks can actually turn in, go past Eagle Drive and turn in and drive into the bay's gonna be a drive-through bay. So that'll be a one-way coming in off 25. Then they'll exit onto Eagle Drive.
Yeah, that's good. I was wondering about, that would answer what I was thinking, because it's like, how would you make that turn and get back up in there? But you're talking about 25, and
Right.
make all the difference there. That's all I have. We still have a little time before our meeting. I know our IT person back in the back, and I didn't check to see everything he needed to report to us tonight. Anything?
Just that I was able to get Jackie that document with the QR code for the merchants for the special event tax reporting. So she has that, and we had it 100% up and ready for our next event on first Friday. So that's been taken care of, and we've also started doing the same thing for assessment letters and utility applications today as well, so they can handle everything online, and that streamlines everything even more for our utilities department.
Since we have a little bit of time left, Mr. Chairman, can we get Jackie, if she would kind of give us a little brief update on where we are within the city downtown? Is that okay?
Sure. Come on, Jackie.
Yes, you wanted an update on the development?
Just an overall view.
Overall. Well,
Where we are briefly.
Well, real briefly, it's First Friday time, so it's June, and this Friday is our next First Friday. We've got a great lineup. We're working on all the details this week, pulling that together. I know that some members of my board of directors has gone before the park board and talked about just requesting some additional assistance, and Steph and I spoke briefly this afternoon about that. I'm really hopeful that we can work together there and find some extra hands for labor, for the hourly help there. The festival season is exciting, and we draw a huge crowd, but it is a lot of work for a small team. So I appreciate everyone's consideration there. The development is coming along. As mentioned, the playground looks terrific. That is underway, and just could not be more excited about that coming together, because that's going to be a really great visual for the progress, and you can't hide that. That's going to be really, really pretty neat. Was there anything else in particular? I didn't have anything formally prepared for tonight.
No, you did. I just wanted to just kind of give us a little brief.
Okay.
Jackie,
Yes, sir.
gonna be able to use the pavilion?
Yes, I believe you requested that for me at the last meeting, and it's my understanding that the pavilion and the restrooms would be available during First Friday. I talked with Roger, and there's already plans to secure the playground safety-wise, so that it's very obvious that the public can't enter the construction areas, and we'll make sure that we keep it as safe as possible. Public Works does a great job of working with me those last couple of days to prepare for all of that.
So you will have as much access, you will have still the same area you had at the last First Friday?
That's my understanding. I believe that will work out, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And then we've got great big plans for July 4th as well. I know you mentioned TNT, and they are once again donating fireworks for us, and that is a huge, a wonderful, wonderful gift to the city. And so they are the presenting sponsors along with Parks and Rec for July. So that is on the heels of this next June month. So a lot in the works, always good stuff.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
We still have a little bit of time here. Since we do, Kevin, if I may ask, either you or maybe Reggie can answer this. So how are we coming with those two bids right in front of Publix? what it's looking like.
Reggie probably tell you more. I mean, the doctor's office is about basically done.
The doctor's office is finished. He's, I think Bill get through it too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, everybody's through with the doctor's office. They're just, I guess, getting all their data and stuff set up and equipment in there. The Mavis Tire, they're they've got part of it sheetrocked, if not all of it by now. They got the roofs done, so they've been moving in some shelves, racks and stuff like that. So they're moving along good. I haven't heard a firm date of when they're wanting to open up. As soon as possible, but it's just according to how everything goes with the rain, the weather, and trying to get parking lot and stuff in. But the building's moving along pretty smooth.
That's good. Nice to have those come online before long.
Steph, I seen they poured the pickleball courts at Rolling Hills. So
Yes.
got the concrete in it.
You know, wait for the gentleman to come to do the overlay over on top of that. Really only one guy in the state does, and they kind of got him, you know, the county got a bunch of them, so they're going from one to the other. But I've had a lot of people talk about it. They're excited about it. They're glad to see it coming, so that's a good thing.
Where are we on the pickleball courts that were supposed to be at Eagle Complex?
Talked to Chris, help me if I'm wrong here, Bill, talked to Chris last week. He's almost done with all his drawing part, and he was supposed to come up with a final cost estimate for us to submit to you guys for the budget, you know, because there was some changes to the plan. So he's supposed to be coming up with that number for us to submit to you guys for the budget. What that would be. Y'all can decide if y'all want to do it all at once or in phases or whatever y'all want to do.
The carvings that are being done at the park on that walking trail over at Oliver Park behind the library are really looking good.
Say it one more time, I'm sorry.
The carvings, they're really looking good.
They are. And Mr. Brad's done a fantastic job, and you can tell he takes pride in it, and we're thankful for him doing it. It's getting a lot of attention outside of Cleveland. We've got a lot of people come see it, so it's nice to see that little area of the park being used a little bit more. So we appreciate everything you've done, and thankful. I've met with him several times, and anyway, super nice guy. If you haven't, go down there and meet him sometime. Really nice guy.
I always go by there and see what is new out there, so it's great.
He did about probably one thing a week. I mean, we had a bunch of dead trees. We lost some in the storm the other day, and he took advantage of those. And I think he did that eagle, the one down towards the creek. So anyway, he's creative. I couldn't do that. Boy, about that. And with the chainsaw, that's I think probably kicked back in my face probably. So good up to him.
What about the limbs and debris from all of that? We got a plan on getting all that picked up?
Yeah, we're gonna get it all picked up. Some of it that he cut, we're gonna get, trying to get a plan with him, see if he's gonna do any more down there with those. If not, we're gonna pick them all up, make a pile, and we'll do a work order with Public Works, have them come up and pick it. We got lucky on that pencil. We had a little branch fell, and I mean, it just fell right down and didn't touch the pencil. So, you know, that thing got a real small lead at the end. That would be hard to knock that thing out, but been lucky on that. I'll be honest, I've been real thankful for the citizens. They taken pride in it and gone to see it, not vandalizing it, so I'm very thankful for them for that. And appreciative of somebody trying to spruce up our park, so thankful for that.
One of the other things is we do have time for discussion. On Friday, we received, I think it was Friday or Thursday, the information on the report of the school report. In the future, as going forward, is there any way possible that we can get, I think Connie did mention that we'll be getting a booklet tonight, or, and instead of, we got a 370, some page on our iPad.
Yes, he's providing, he's bringing 10 booklets that will be given to y'all tonight before the presentation starts.
Okay, before. Okay.
That's part of the contract agreement.
He didn't get it to us on Friday.
Okay.
I wasn't able to stay on.
Okay.
And Chief, on 2024 that we have tonight, that 34, resolution 34, is anything concerning those guidelines, everything still on the flow of Mexico?
This group was pretty much the type where we stay with the federal law and the state law. There was not a lot of areas that we even had the opportunity to differentiate. So best practices areas, these were this was a very straightforward set. Some of the other ones take us a lot more energy and work to work our way through, but these were pretty straightforward. There'll be times where I may comment, on certain things, like last week when we have something that's maybe a little more, where we have to change some of the language to fit our circumstances, our department, that sort of thing. We gave them a template. I told you guys this, but I know I've told you a lot of information about it, but we gave Lexipol a template of what our department's made up of and told them a lot of information about our city. And then they take their basic set of policies that are based on federal law, state law, and best practices for roughly 4,500 agencies, and they draft a document for us. And then we go through each policy one at a time and make sure that they fit Calera. And we do that in conjunction with Lexipol. It's not just done by us. And if we don't change federal law items and we don't change state law items, we only consider the best practices areas. But the ones you have tonight were very straightforward, and we had very few modifications. And typically the modifications are superficial, maybe language, maybe their example states a certain rank makes this certain type decision. Ours may be a bit different. Our structure may be different, and we just change it like that. So these are very straightforward policies. We are adding policy topics, many of them that we did not have policy for in the past. Some of our policies were written many, many years ago, decades ago. And so they're, like the hate crime section you have tonight, there's several policies, dozens and dozens that we will have that we've never had before. And you'll see, if you review our existing policies, you'll see quite a few that are new areas that we never had before.
Attorney, do you have any more information on that we talked about the last time you was here, on the form of government?
Well, you're over 12,000 in population, so at the next election, you can stay exactly as you are, except the mayor will be sitting down here. He'll no longer be a part, sitting on the dais and a voting member of the council. There are other forms of government you can consider, and you and I talked about that, the city manager, council manager form of government, that would require a vote of the people. Y'all also could determine that you just wanted to hire a city manager, which is also provided in the law. There's also something called a city administrator, all of which are forms of government that allow you to decide how you're going to do the decision-making process, the evaluation decision-making process. There are other procedures you could, right now you're at large, six voting members at large. You could go to a single member district. You could also reduce the number of council members to 5. The single member districts, you can do 5 to 7. So there's a lot of options out there, and I guess what I'd ask is for y'all to, I'm happy to talk about all those. It's a little bit difficult to do it without an idea of kind of what y'all are thinking in terms of where you want to go, because there's different areas of law that apply to all that, and I'll need to evaluate it all. But there's a lot of different things you could do. You can just stay the way you are, basically, and have 6 of you as voting members. And then the mayor would, be down here and not a voting member of the council when that change occurs at the next election.
So the last time, if I'm not mistaken, I think you mentioned due to the Justice Department in 2012, are we clear to do the districts, since you mentioned that?
Yes, I looked up that case, and the way that consent decree is written, it automatically expired after the 2012 election. So I don't see any issue with that from that case. Now, when we got a better sense of what we wanted to do, I might reach out to the Justice Department and just make sure that, we're not going to run afoul of anything. Of course, as you all know, the pre-clearance requirements were eliminated with the Shelby County case, but that doesn't mean the Justice Department cannot actually enforce those provisions that relate to, the right to vote and racial quotas and discrimination. So, we just want to make sure we didn't run afoul, but that case that established the way you all voted for today, and it was approved by the federal court, that consent decree has expired according to the paperwork in that case.
So getting closer to that time period, then,
Well,
is
you
there
need
a
to-
time
well,
period
you need to
that
probably-
you're gonna guide us through
Yeah,
this?
you probably need, we need to do something before 6 months before the next election. Now, if you want to do council manager, which is a very different form of government, very few municipalities in Alabama have that, because you're going to have to require 10% of the electors, you've got to get an election, the people of the city of Clear have to decide to move that form of government. So all that requires much more pre-planning. If you want to just do something like change the number of council members, go to single-member districts, we're talking at least 6 months before, that election, you've got to have all that in place. And, we just want to make sure we were not running afoul of anything by checking with the Justice Department, even though we don't have to pre-clear anymore any of those changes.
Thank you.
Councilman Morton, what you got in mind that you'd like to see the city go to?
Well, I would love to see the city really gets, during the time of the censor report, I think the form of government first, to get that in place, what we should have already been functioning under, if I'm not mistaken. That's the first thing I would like to do. You're shaking your head.
Well, you're functioning quite well right now, so any changes would go into effect with this next election. So you kind of have the census has to be finalized, and so much time has to pass. So it's your next election when you would make changes where the mayor would no longer be a part of the voting members of the council. So you're not operating that way right now. You're not required to legally. You're not doing anything wrong. You continue doing what you're doing. And that change will take place. If y'all want to make an affirmative decision to do something else is what you're talking about. So changing the form of government to this council manager form. I know you and I talked, you had asked a question about that. That would be something very different than what you're doing today. If you wanted to reduce the number of council members, that's going to be different, obviously, than what you're doing today. If you want to go to single-member districts, now that's, I don't know everything about the history of that case, but obviously that was one of the things, plus the annexations that sort of got the city in trouble before with the pre-clearance in terms of denying people the right to have a fair vote. So, we just want to make sure that if you've got some ideas in mind, we certainly, legally vet it and we get that in place before, in plenty of time before the next election, to put something in place and make sure the council's going to agree to it.
Councilman Costa, I think that would be something for further discussion amongst the council, that we all can see exactly what's on the table for us to choose from. And we as a unit make a decision on which direction we should go, more so than what direction I feel we should go.
And Grace, you're gonna keep us clear with what timeline we need to adhere to, correct?
Yeah, so the election's gonna be in 2025, October, and go into like November, I think, of 2025. So you need 6 months before then, so just like, calculating back, you're talking about, what's that, May, so or August. In August is your election. Okay, so we got 6 months before that, before when you put any changes in place. So, I mean, we're already in June of 2024, and they qualify in June. Okay, so y'all, I mean, if y'all want to do something different, we should be thinking about that. I mean, y'all should be thinking about that right now. And if you want to give me some proposals, I mean, I can, try to vet them. I mean, there's so many permutations, it's hard to have an answer for everything. But if y'all say, hey, we want to move to 5, single member, I can give you some answer. We want to explore, council manager. That's a whole different process because it requires the people clear to vote on it. So I don't know the best way to proceed. I don't know if it needs to be the subject of a work session or y'all could set up a committee, but you're still subject to open, meetings act and all that. I mean, there are a lot of ways you could go for it. So
If we wanted to allow the citizen to do feedback on that, what they would like to have, in a form of a survey,
yeah.
could we get something set up, legal?
Yeah, I mean, you can always ask your folks what they, you could do it on your website, you could do it any number of ways. You could invite people here to participate in a work session. You could have a public hearing on it, just a formal public hearing. It wouldn't be a decision-making issue, but you could invite their input. Of course, the people can always come here to a public meeting and make their views known if you allow public comments. So there's lots of ways, and of course you all are in constant communication with your constituents. So, there are lots of ways to do that. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is, depending on what your options are, I can then sort of investigate for you, say, here's how you need to go. But I kind of need a sense from y'all as to, are we talking about reducing numbers, staying as is, going to single member districts, doing something very different, council manager form of government, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councilman, let me mention one other thing for y'all's consideration. So you can act also to keep it exactly the same, meaning the mayor continues to be a voting member of the council, because y'all are between the population figures of 12,000 and 25,000, so that's kind of another option for you to consider. If you're happy with the way it's working and you like this dynamic, then that's also an option to keep it that way. When you reach over 25,000, you have to at least make the change where the mayor's no longer a voting member of the council. So that's another option for y'all to consider.
Okay, the clock on the wall says it's time to get started. We're gonna call the meeting to order.
Let's pray. Father God, we come before you and just thank you so much for what you do for us, Father. We ask that you be with us as we move through the balance of this meeting to make good decisions. for our city, and we ask that you be with everyone that's under the weather, get them feeling better, and we ask these things in your son's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Alan. For those who have just, in the audience who just come in, Mayor Graham is not going to be with us tonight. We have you reached out to him and acting without careful with his business tonight, and we just hope safe travels for him. He should be back with us soon. Okay, let's look at our agenda. First of all, I need to entertain a motion to accept the agenda that we have tonight. A motion and a second to accept this agenda, council.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
A second.
All in favor, by sign of aye?
Aye.
Okay, now I need a motion to, and a second to, concerning our minutes from the meeting from our work session on May the 24th.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion second, all in favor, by sign of aye?
Aye.
Okay. Then we'll move forward in our business. Okay, first on the agenda, we have our old business. As you see, the city engineer and public works concerning our road repairs, our paving report. Any discussions on that? And something to do with asking about with John.
Yes, I think we've already had discussion on that.
Okay. No discussion from the council? If not, then entertain a motion for that. I'm good with the paving project. I will make a motion.
I'll make the motion for the paving project.
A second.
Okay, motion second that we move forward with this paving project. All in favor, by the sign of aye?
Aye.
Any opposes? None. Okay, Bill, we good with that, we can move on. Okay, as you know, we have two ordinances and one resolution tonight. And what we're going to do, instead of just going down the way they're shown on our agenda, let's do those orders and the resolution first, and then we'll come back to the school feasibility study at the end. On orders number 2024-05, that's our sale tax, sale of unneeded municipal property. We're going to need unanimous consent on that, and we're going to have a roll call vote on unanimous consent and on the roll call vote. That's 2024-04. I know we had some discussion already concerning that property. Council, do you, and I will make a motion or have some discussion on what we want to do about this, about 2024-05.
Mr. Chair, if I may, this was the one that you wanted to amend with language. I suggested some language just for your consideration, council member. That would be to add a section 3 to the draft that says that the proceeds from such sale, if any, shall be set aside and their use will be determined by the council at a later date. So you can move to amend that and add it to the resolution draft that you have in front of you, but the issue of whether you should approve the sale without an appraisal, obviously, is something for the council to think about.
Well, to go back to that discussion on that, before there's a motion moved on this, I still stick with we need to get an appraisal on this property first before we sell it for the price that we're asking or the price that's been presented to us as a council.
I agree with that as well. We need to know what the value of it is, because it may be valued higher than we're selling it for. So we need some documentation indicating what it actually values at, the value of it is.
Okay, anyone else? Regardless, we would need unanimous consent even if a motion came to the floor, so it can be killed right here, but anyway, anybody want to make a motion on 2405?
I'll make a motion for unanimous consent with the addition of the language that Ray suggested.
Okay, we have a unanimous motion on 2024-05. Are we ready? Do we have a second? Any second on unanimous consent?
I'll make a motion on unanimous consent.
You second, you second. Okay, the motion is second for unanimous consent to vote on 24-05. Are we ready to vote? All in favor by the sign of aye? We're going to do a roll call on unanimous consent. Let's start with Councilwoman Turner. The clerk will call. It's a nay?
It's a nay, yes, no.
Okay. So we're done, right?
You cannot consider it. It needs 2 readings unless the requirement for 2 readings is unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on. Ordinance number 2403 is a public hearing. It's a rezoning R1 to B2. It's a piece of property on that's 10th Avenue.
Yes,
is that right? Do you want to share, tell us something, tell the council, so I know I'm familiar with it myself, but make sure they all familiar with that piece of property.
It's just across from our office, it's on 10th Street, right before you get to the elementary school. As soon as you cross the tracks. I think he's here tonight. Yeah, he's back there, if you want to ask him any questions about it.
Okay, council, I know we have, I guess everybody.
Has this request been before the Plan and Zoning Committee?
Yes, it has.
Did they approve it?
Mhm.
Yes.
My question is, what is the standard operating procedure for a project of this type? I mean, what order does it start in? It start with planning commission?
Yes.
Can you give me the list?
The list,
How does it flow? What's the standard operating procedure?
it would go to council, or planning commission first, and then it goes to y'all.
And then what?
And then y'all approve it or you don't approve it.
Okay, we approve it or not, and then the project starts, or is it, that's what I'm trying to ask.
I mean, typically, yes. Yes. But, I mean,
Project finished it.
yes, he's finished now, but he knows that he does not get this zoning, that he cannot put his business there.
So he already did the work, even though it's supposed to start with planning, then we approve it before he starts the work? Is that the way?
I mean, he can work on the house if he wants to.
He can work on it without approval?
I mean, he has a permit. So, yeah.
Even though it's not zoned for business?
I mean, he's just remodeling a house.
Oh, okay, I see.
It's not a new construction.
But normally for a project that is
If it were
for
new
business?
construction, yes, he would have to submit plans and everything before he could ever start building.
But this one is complete? So we're going kind of backwards with this. They're waiting for our approval, but the project's complete.
It was up to him whether he wanted to continue. If he wanted to do that work before he got his approval, it was up to him.
So what does our approval, our attorney, could you answer that for me? What does our approval signify? What does that do? How is that important then if he's already done the work?
My understanding is it's not zoned for business, so
Right,
you're
correct.
changing it from residential one. Okay, so in order for him to actually have a business on that site, it would have to be rezoned. And so it sounds like he's already done the work, and now he needs approval to have it zoned a certain way so he can actually perform the function that he would like to actually use the building for, which is a business and not a residence.
So that goes back to what Ms. Kay is saying then. If that was the case, then it should have been rezoned first before he did the work.
Well, if it were my house and I was spending the money, I would certainly have done it in that way. But what I understand him to be saying is that work was permitted, and if it's permitted, he can do the work, and he takes the risk that the council, well, first the planning commission, and then the council may not agree.
Did he understand that?
Yes, he well understood that, yes.
My understanding, the property was previously commercial and then went back to residential. And planning and zoning has approved it, so I don't see a problem.
What if everybody in the city start doing that?
Planning and zoning doesn't have to approve.
I think it's very important to realize that the only modification to the building with this interior modification, the thing that would require for a B2, if this is given B2, he would have to do all the things that's required in the B2, including the
Parking lot.
parking spaces and all that.
Handicap accessibility.
So, and even the buffer had to be put up as well, right?
Yep.
And if you do not get the approval from the council, then of course the property was just stay like as it is. It was under someone else, it was a B2, Alan, as you said some years ago. And then I think they came in this sought for a residential piece of property, then now it's back to a B2, asking for a B2. So if you approve this, of course, it would be used for, what is the business of, I know it's a public hearing, and if the owner wants to come up and tell us what he's planning to do with the business.
The business is just a sales operation. We sell digital equipment and supplies. Most of it is drop ship. There's a little bit of inventory, but it's basically an office. And just to answer the question on the rezoning, it was purchased originally as a residence. It was approved and rezoned as commercial. The previous owner decided to keep it as a house, so he rezoned it back residential. So when it went back to business, honestly, I assumed there wouldn't be any problem since it was previously approved to be rezoned as a business. But as it sits right now, if you decline it, then we'll just use it as a house and sell it. I mean, obviously, we want to operate the business and bring the revenue into the city. But if not, we'll just do something else. But I did understand the risk. Kevin and Reggie were extremely helpful during the process. My risk at it was just thinking that it was already rezoned commercial previously. It's sitting across from a commercial business already. It's right next to the bank, right across from Active Air. But I respect y'all's decision. Planning and zoning's already approved it.
The property's been sitting vacant for quite some time. I think we're pro-business, so I don't see a problem.
I'm just wanting to make sure that we follow proper procedures, because we've had errors and omissions on previous projects and what have you, and we hadn't followed procedure, and I thought we, moving forward, we're trying to follow the law that we have voted on. So That was my issue. Or are there exceptions, or is it straight up the way, a particular order that we're supposed to follow? Or are there exceptions? That's what I'm trying to understand.
No, there's not exceptions. I mean,
On this one, like I said, he took the risk, and all it's gonna be, if it gets turned down, like you said, he can make it a house. So whether he remodeled it, he could have remodeled it as a residence. He went ahead and did the handicapped, the ADA bathrooms, the ramps and stuff, you can use that in a house. So everything he did is, there's no problem with it. It's more wired and built commercial. He's got the long handicap ramp. So there's no problem with it going residential if it doesn't. So he went ahead and done everything according to the IBC code, the building code, for commercial. It's also accepted in residential. Now, if he went to the residential side of it and didn't do all that stuff, and he was to try to go in business, he got to go back in there and do everything again for business or for commercial. He just went one up above it, and he can go either way with it. So there was nothing done illegally backwards. I mean, he went about it backwards because he rolled the dice on whether he can have a business or a residence. But either way, he's good to go. His permit was good.
So the revenue off of B2 is a considerable amount of difference than the rest. So just looking at the revenue off of this, if it does become B2, then it'll be a significant change for us. So the city will gain by going B2.
So what type of tax revenue are you expecting? What percentage?
Well, that depends on how much business is done inside of the city or in the state from a shipping standpoint. So it's hard to gauge that. It's an established business that was based out of Pelham, Alabama. By moving it to Calera, we'll be getting a Calera business license if the zoning's approved, and we'll be paying taxes, Shelby County, Alabama, and City of Calera. To be honest with you, I don't really know that. I mean, we've only owned the business for a month and a half. But it does anywhere from, $600,000 to $1 million a year in revenue. So how much of that is shipped into the city of Calera and the state? To be honest with you, I don't know. As much as we can, I can promise you that.
You don't have a projected amount? Yeah, you don't have a projected amount at all?
To the city of Calera, no.
Right, okay.
Not being disrespectful to you in any manner of not wanting to have this. The only thing about this is, over the past 2 to 3 years, we have had major issues in dealing with the zoning and codes and things of this nature. And what we're trying to do is set a standard and have a policy and procedures in place where it's fair to everybody. And my only thing to this council is, now, when someone else come in here with the same issue, they went out and they have redone their building in their place. I mean, consider what we're about to do. You do it for one, you need to do it for all.
I think, again, Councilman Morgan, I think it's important to understand, as Reggie was explaining, it's a step up what he did to the already existing building. And if the worst case scenario, if you do not get the approval, the building is better now than it was prior. And he just do not have the business, so nothing changes in that sense. As a member of the planning and zoning, it's important to we had the adjacent property owner came before the planning and zoning for you all to know this, and they would ask what their problem with them. They said they had, after they looked at everything and understand what was going on, they said they had no issue with this type of office type business connected next to them, as long as they had the buffer and everything in place that's required by our codes. So I just wanted to let y'all know that as well.
Well, if I can say this too, when I approached, the city about getting a permit and things of that nature, as soon as I said, the intent is a business, then they were very upfront. If it's the intent is a business, then it needs to be done for a business. So that's my risk of doing, going up and above and beyond and doing all the extras. And then if it gets rejected, then I'll sell it as a house or rent it out. Do we want more houses and rentals or businesses? That's up to y'all to decide. But again, my risk was really based on it was previously zoned business. The only reason it was moved back is because the owner decided to, instead of demolish it, keep it. And he pulled permits and had the roof redone and the windows redone and the paint redone. But the inside was not redone. So nothing exterior was changed to make it not a house. It's still a house. Still looks like a house. The inside is just fresh and new and ready to be used with whatever y'all approve.
And one other thing, I just want to let everybody understand, if he would have came in and it was B2 right now, and he would have came in and said, I want to get a permit to wire it as a house, hoping we would do it, he couldn't have done that because you got to tear everything out. The way it sits now, the way he did it, he could have came in and said, I want to redo this house, and did it exactly the same way he did right here. There's no problem. The only thing is he wants to make it a business. But he could have did his house, if he wanted to keep it a residence, he could have did it the exact same way he did right here, except for a couple of exit lights he might not have put in on the house or the back front door. But other than that, everything's the same. It's just better. So he couldn't went the other way with it. This way he could. He went above and beyond. He couldn't went below it. So nothing was done shady. There wasn't nothing done squeaky under the wheel. Everything was legal.
Well, Reggie, how many permits have we granted ahead of zoning approval?
I have no idea. But like I said, he could have, it doesn't matter. If he wanted to do it, I couldn't deny him a permit. If he said, I want to redo this as a house, and I'm going to do it just like this, and then he would did all that, and then he came to y'all and said, I want to make this a residence. I went right back over there, Bill, Kevin, everybody, we looked at the zoning and said, you meet every requirement, it's good for that.
Listen, so is this something though that you normally permit
No,
something without the approval of,
It doesn't, the
without zoning approval?
permitting doesn't matter with zoning. The permitting doesn't hold that right there up. And it will if he tries to go in there and do, I'm not gonna give a permit for a house in a business district. But this right here, he could have done it either way he wanted to. The permit was legal. He could have did it wherever he wanted to. And it's just gonna be a house. He's just waiting on y'all to tell him it's gonna be a business or residence, whether y'all give it or not. It's an odd case, but there's nothing shady about it. And there's
Right,
no-
but like I said, we like procedures. We have procedures in place for a reason, and we want them to be followed.
This one was followed, Days, and has no problem with it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Are there any, still a public hearing, any comments from the floor before we move forward? Okay, I need a vote of unanimous consent on 2024-03 from the council.
I'll make a motion for unanimous consent on 2024-03.
I'll second.
Okay, it's motion and second. We're gonna have a roll call on that. Councilwoman Turner?
Nay.
Okay.
Right, so that means you cannot consider it, you have to do the two readings. So you have been permitted to vote, get rid of unanimous consent, or unanimous consent to just get rid of the two readings. So you have to do two readings for this one.
Okay. Thank you.
So does that mean that it comes before a vote next council meeting
You can, yeah.
without unanimous consent?
That's right.
Okay. Then we'll move on to resolution 2024-34. We're all still familiar with continuation with the chief, those policies, police policies. Do we have any discussion from the council? question to the chief concerning this? If not, then I need a unanimous consent vote on 2024-34. Councilwoman Turner? Okay, we got, I'm sorry. From unanimous, yeah, we need a motion for unanimous consent.
I'll make the motion.
I second.
Okay. There's motion for unanimous consent. All in favor by the sign of aye? Aye. Okay, we'll do a roll call on that one as well, even though it's a resolution. Councilwoman Turner?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Cost?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we need a motion to adopt.
I move. I'll second.
Okay, the motion is second to adopt 2024-34. Roll call. Councilwoman Turner?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Cost?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Montgomery, yes. Okay, motion carried. Okay. That takes care of those ordinances and resolutions. Before we go to the school piece of the study, there, I think, I want to make sure I'm in order to do this. I don't know if we would need our department heads to continue on, maybe said, I don't know if we would need the department head here just to have the discussion of feasibility study. If not, if we don't, the council, follow it, we can dismiss them if that, okay.
Yes, that's fine. You don't need them here. They can be dismissed.
Okay, to the department head, you could leave if you like. Thank you, guys, ladies. Okay, now we're gonna ask for, we're down to this school feasibility study, financial feasibility study. We're gonna have Mr. Harvey to come to the up front and lead us into this discussion. Or this report, should I say.
Tell you what, Seth, could you help me get to one corner where I can look at the council and the audits? And see who's ready to throw something at me, maybe? Perfect. 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 Ladies and gentlemen, am I on? Do you wish me to begin?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Those of you who are seated a little bit more distant from a screen, I'm going to be using a PowerPoint a great deal, and if you feel like you want to reposition yourself so you can see what we're doing and talking about, I think that'll be very helpful to you. First of all, okay. First of all, we are taking a look at all of the parameters that are involved in the financial feasibility of creating a public school system for the city of Calera. All we can do is take a financial snapshot of the resources and the conditions that would prevail if the decision had been made and the system was created for this fiscal year. Please keep in mind, we are in fiscal year 23-24. On October the 1st, fiscal year 24-25 will begin. A school system cannot be started during that fiscal year due to time limitations. So the first year of operation would be for legislative appropriations for fiscal year 2025-26. So we are thinking about something that is significantly in the future. In terms of a short time frame, no, it's a little bit longer time frame. Are there any things that come up about the city of Calera, its inhabitants, its tax structure, the age of its citizens, the number of kids that may need special education services, demographics? Yes, we're going to take a look at that. The study is long. I apologize to you. But there are so many issues, and every year that goes by, with the good blessings of the legislature, things get a little bit more complicated. Just like everything else in operating city government, I'm sure. So there are 7 chapters outlined for specific discussions of categories of variables that are important. The first is the origin of laws governing public education in Alabama. None of you may be interested in that. But there is a reason. From 1819 to the present day, we started with 16 section lands to individual townships. In 1854, we coalesced those into county school systems unless there was a municipal school system formed, or city. But the intent always was, by action of the legislature, that down the road, every municipality that reached the threshold of first 2,500 people population, or today 5,000 population, they would automatically become a city school system. If you choose not to, by statute, you have to pass a city council resolution saying we don't want to do this. And the County Board of Education has got to say, and by resolution, we see your resolution, if we accept it, we're supposed to stay one. So the default is 16 sections go back to municipalities, which are basically the logical logical endpoint of the 16 section lands. Okay, all of that said, there's just a little bit about that. One other interesting point. Since 1875, we've had a constitutional provision that said the legislature cannot go and pass a local law telling you what you've got to do with your local Board of Education. It's prohibited in the Constitution. Disclaimer. Not everybody always pays attention to the Constitution, and in my view it was violated with what has happened in 2 bills in Wallen County, the distribution of sales tax money countywide, and making a municipality pay for every school building of the county that is in their municipality. The argument is, very simple, you get the property, you get the buses that serve the school sites. Simply why? It all originated with the 16 section land grants, and you have been paying taxes all of these years to the county to pay for those schools. So you get that property. That is standard operating procedure. That's what we're trying to do in that chapter. Demographics in government establishing a school system, I'll lay out all the pertinent laws, rules, and regulations and how this is accomplished if you make the decision to do it. Now, does anybody pay attention to the law that says you should have passed a resolution that you did not want to do it when you reached 5,000? No. As a former president of UAB once told me, all those laws are so old, nobody pays attention to them anymore. Well, they're on the books, and they do have statutory authority, but you're guaranteed the right. Demographics, we're going to take a look at that. Types of financial aid formulas that the state offers. What resources in 5 would be available from the Shelby County taxes for public schools? What kind of revenues in 6 would be available to the proposed Calera City school system? And in Chapter 7, a summary and how does it look? Point. I am not in favor of you separating. I am not in favor of you not separating. That is your political decision. It is left by law to your city council to decide. So I take no position or no side. I want to be as neutral as I can in this discussion. Then, of course, a bibliography and umpteen appendices. Now let me say one more thing about this. This is a handbook that if you were to want to do this, practically everything that your new Board of Education would need to have a factual basis for and a reference for, your new superintendent, chief school finance officer, technology coordinator, etc., 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 what they need to know, and to carry it to the extreme, as I found in many of the studies that I've done, bond attorneys have said, thank you, Ira, for laying out exactly how the taxes are levied, collected, when they're to expire, and what can be done with them. So there's a lot of material there. We're going to cover it very quickly. What is the student population to be served? A very critical issue. By law, you are required, if you form a city board of education, to serve every resident of school age in the city of Calera. Are you required to serve any students from outside the city boundaries of Calera? The answer is no. May you serve outside the city limits of Calera? Yes. That is a Board of Education decision. That is one of those variables that I cannot know, you cannot know, until the issue is further investigated and you have an absolute database of how many school-aged children actually reside in the city limits of the city of Calera. What about kids that are attending from outside the city boundaries who are actually enrolled in those schools now? That's a decision your city Board of Education could make. They could be grandfathered in and allowed to finish their academic program in that school site, or, as in some separation agreements, they could be allowed to stay until they finish the 12th grade. Who makes that decision? The separation agreement, which will be created and driven by your city Board of Education if you choose to make that additional step. Taxes, we're going to look at that. What are the relevant characteristics of the population of Calera? Well, for example, would it cost more to start up a city school system if there are an awful lot of young people living there and more coming every day? Yeah. Does it make a difference if you have a high percentage of elderly population? Yeah. Elderly people tend to be very conservative and very distrustful of any idea of a tax increase if revenues were needed. The older I get, the more likely I am to vote no, and let's just forget about it. If you have let's use this example. Suppose you have a family of 4 and you have an income, let's say $75,000 a year for those 4. You're going to be living fairly okay. But what if you were a family of 6 and you've got to spread that money over more kids? Then suddenly your family wealth per child decreases. That's the difficulty we run into when we take a look at how schools are financed. Your revenues are going to be relatively fixed. Yes, you will get state money for every child. You will get countywide share of money for every child. You will get federal money for every child that's eligible. But the school tax district, there are two types of taxes, ad valorem taxes. Countywide, which is all of Shelby County, and you've been paying into that for years. Part of it's coming back to your school sites. And district taxes. They're very different. Every county must have at least 2 school systems to have a district tax. Years and years ago, there were 2 districts, 1 and 2 in Shelby County. Now there's just District 2. You've got Pelham and Alabaster, part of Hoover, part of Vestavia, part of Leeds, part of Birmingham. But if you make the decision to form, your city limits will comprise a new taxing jurisdiction. And that's the school tax district ad valorem tax. Good news, ladies and gentlemen. Shelby County levies 16 mills of ad valorem taxes countywide. The district tax is levied and collected, and you're paying it. You're paying it to the county Board of Education right now, but Pelham and Alabaster are collecting it within their municipal boundaries, and they keep it for the respective Board of Education. So that's 14 mills. That's 30 mills. That is a very high ad valorem tax base. It is not representative of Alabama. You can compare yourselves, if you wish, to a few places like Vestavia, Mountain Brook, Hoover. There are a few of them which have those high tax rates. You could also compare yourself to Chilton County. What is their total tax rate there in mills? 10. Are the schools in Chilton County well funded? No. Do you have city municipal boundaries in Chilton County? Yes, you do. Will you have to serve the 147 identified children who live in Chilton County within the city limits of Calera in your school system? Yes. Are they in the schools now? No. We'll have a slide a little bit later, or there's in the report that will show you where they're scattered all over Chilton County. What did I just say, though? They're very low tax rate. So the yield by tax rate of resources that you will get from the City of Calera School Tax District in Chilton County is going to be very meager, incredibly small. Will you get a share of countywide tax from Chilton County? Yeah, you'll get a little bit of that, but it's very small money. So what is happening here is, in addition to the Chilton County area being a very low tax rate, it is also extremely low property tax value. You are very fortunate, as was Pelham, as was Alabaster when we did the study for them, to be guaranteed tax proceeds from a very high property wealth area, and, by the same token, a very high sales tax wealth area. So you will be benefiting from everything that's gone on in Shelby County for your share of countywide 16 mills and countywide sales tax, and other excise, franchise, and privilege license taxes that are levied for a school within the county. So you've got a big step up. Now, what's going to be difficult for me to deal with, and already I'm taking a lot more time than I planned to, but I'm trying now to adjust, and we're actually going ahead to some of the slides and work it in because The old saying used to be, education finance is like a Russian novel. It's long, it's boring, and in the end, everybody dies. Well, that's kind of what discussing these issues is like, but please stay with me. I'll try to be as clear as I can. Okay? Other considerations, we'll skip that, we'll skip that. 16th section we've talked about, chapter 1 we've talked about. We are at 5,000 as the critical population to trigger the statutory guarantee that you can have a city school system. It's not, it would take an act of the legislature that has general application statewide to change that number either up or down. Now, are all political leaders happy with that situation? No. That's why I have to go to such extreme in a study to try to evaluate every potential variable there if you decide, your city council, to create a city board of education. There are going to be a lot of naysayers. There are going to be people who say you can't afford it, you can't do it, you're too small. Legislation surfaced for a couple of decades to raise that number to 10 to 15,000 because city boards of education drain county resources. That actually is not a fair statement. The county will still get all of the money for the kids that it has. You, by forming a city board of education, on the other hand, undertake an additional financial obligation. There's no other way to say it. But that is the leverage that a city has. You have virtual home rule on taxes you can levy at what rate, except for ad valorem taxes. And you can make decisions, and you can, by city council action, assist in the funding of a city school system. County Board of Education doesn't have that possibility. They can't go to the county commission. The county commission doesn't have direct taxing authority, as a city does. All right? Would you be inopportune if the legislature next year raises the threshold to 15 or 30,000? Yeah. It's off the table as something being available for you. 40 years after the 1995 equity funding lawsuit and legislation that was passed and new funding mechanisms to hopefully achieve greater equity, and we were successful in doing that, that issue is back being discussed by the legislature. There is a joint legislative committee of the House and Senate studying a massive overhaul of education funding. And they are to get a report and probably introduce legislation next year. Thought question. What do we use as the single one variable to measure financial ability of a municipality to operate a school system? Ad valorem tax revenues, the yield of one meal divided by the number of students. You get wealthier if you have more assessed valuation yielding more revenues on the district tax, which would be how many meals in the city of Calera in Shelby County. Anybody want to try it? 14. You would automatically be guaranteed whatever the county-wide district meal is, District 2, you inherit that same rate. In the city of Calera, in Chilton County, the rate is 5 meals. Okay, so that's the inheritance, it's the automatic situation that occurs. Well, one of the legislative ideas is to say, We're going to set a standard for how much per capita income you should have. Because you need more income, you've got to be fairly wealthy to have your school system. Can a municipality levy an income tax? No. Can a county? No. It's prohibited by Constitution only to the state of Alabama. So why should you try to measure wealth based on a tax that you can't levy and collect anyway? So, point I'm leaving you with here. The single measure of your financial ability is how much money you would receive from the district tax that would be created Calera at Shelby, Calera at Chilton, and your share of the countywide taxes based on ADM ratio. In other words, if you have 147 kids living in Chilton County, what percent or ratio is that of the total population? Well, if it's 2%, you get 2% of the money. It's that simple. The more kids you have, the more your money has to be spread out. The fewer you have, you lose economy of scale. You don't have enough children in schools to make the operation of the schools viable. So right now, you're kind of in the sweet spot on that. There doesn't seem to be a problem one way or the other. Okay, so we define a city. We do exactly what we talked about here, so I'm going to flip on through this. If you decide by city council action to form a board of education, there will be 5 members appointed to staggered terms. That's by state law. Could there be alternatives like holding election by districts in the future? Yes. But right now, whatever happens, if you make the decision to form a board, that's what's got to happen. Please get this straight. The fact that your city council could create a city board of education does not mean you have separated from the county. It simply means you have filed for divorce. You've created a legal authority to represent the interests of the citizens of Calera, and then you begin the process of negotiation in a divorce settlement. For what do you get? What do they get? What have you got to pay for costs that they're going to push off on you, etc., etc., etc. So step number 1, you can form a board of education, but that doesn't mean you're a separate board with any control over schools. What it does mean is that board has legal authority to accept city council appropriations and hire such staff as may be necessary to plan and get ready for a separation agreement in the future. Separation would be following the historical conditions of how these are done. You would get control of the schools July the 1st, 2025, if everything were to work out. We'll talk about in a few minutes the financial liabilities that come with that. If you form a board, are you obligated to proceed to separation? No. If you never negotiate and get signatures from your board and from Shelby County and the state superintendent, you never become a separate city school system. You never receive state, federal, or local tax dollars until there is a contract of separation. That's a catch-22 now, because you form the board, you cannot get any money until October the 1st, well actually, let's say the 22nd to the 24th of 2024-25. So a board that is formed, and that's the way it's been done for the last 50 years, has to be funded by city council appropriations and or revenue increases that are dedicated for this purpose. You can back out at any point. It's a reversible deal. Last point. If you do achieve financial separation, can we go that far? Are you obligated to stay that way forever? And the answer is no. By law, your city board could vote to turn the schools back over to the county, and they have to take them. So this is not a one-way street. This is a two-way street, and it's proposed school board that we're talking about, and there are many outs if it turns out to be something that you don't want to do. All right? Problem. You've got very ragged city limits. And as Seth will tell you, the first time I talked with y'all, that was one of the things I wanted to see right away from what I'd been gathering from the map. Gee, that poses a problem. Which children are you going to let attend? Just the ones in the city? Well, they'll be the only ones paying the school tax district ad valorem tax. The ones outside the city won't be paying that tax, which means that whatever taxes your citizens produce for the school board, it's got to be spread up among resident and non-resident students. The more non-resident students, it dilutes your resources. But if you have too few students, it's just almost as bad because you don't have an economy of scale. You're in a sweet spot except for that very ragged. Okay, negative point. Positive point. You have annexed high property tax wealth, class 2 business property, assessed at 20% of its fair market value. If you had all farms, it would only be at 10%. And if you could build a nuclear power plant here, it'd be 30%. Or Alabama Power, God help us, build another coal-fired plant here, which I don't think is on the horizon. So, looking at the blend of classes of property, Shelby County comes out way ahead because there's so much commercial property. You would be getting tax revenues from a countywide tax from what has happened in Pelham, Alabaster, Hoover, Chelsea, Helena, Columbiana, everywhere, where property values have risen. This is a difficult thing to understand, so let me try to do this right now. I'm having to ad-lib as we go because I feel like there's only so much of this revival meeting that y'all could stand. I grew up going to the Methodist church in the country and with the fans from the local funeral parlor and just saying, oh dear Lord, please let me be sick and not have to go. All right. Given the circumstances, the evaluation of the blend of property within Calera is not quite as favorable as Shelby County overall, but it's within very close distance. Here's the other side now of the equation. When calculations are made by the two main state funding programs, the 1995 Foundation Program and the 1995 Capital Purchase Program, they operate as equalization. They say each local school system, like for the Foundation Program, you provide 10 mills or its tax base equivalent of school tax district ad valorem. And we're going to subtract that from the cost of the Foundation Program, and then the state is going to give you the remainder of the money necessary to operate it. What happens as you become poorer? the state pays a larger share. If you become richer, then your local share goes up and the state share goes down. Right now, by being a little bit poorer than the county as a whole on property tax values, you get an offset by being charged required local effort that's less than that on average in Shelby County. Chilton County helps you a little bit more because that's an even poorer area. If it were a super wealthy area, your required local effort, 10 mills versus tax base equivalent, would go up higher. So, given everything together, that's what the calculations get to in a later chapter, and we'll come to those in just a moment, but let me now continue. Police jurisdiction. What if your city limits were police jurisdiction? Would that be a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. That's your political decision. But would a family who's living in the police jurisdiction and paying sales tax feel like that they had some right to the Calera City school system? I don't know. But that is a very difficult issue. You're talking about planning and zoning. This is the key component of that. Ideally, I'd like to see a city with a nice circle. And think about it with me now. If you were to do a school transportation program, another issue. Only your Board of Education can decide if you're going to continue to run buses and bring kids to the school sites. Do you have to do it? No. Do you have to provide special ed transportation? Yes, that's another separate category. But general school transportation? No. Who's going to make that decision? Only your city Board of Education, if formed by resolution and written in the minutes as approved. You've got to have an entire policy manual developed. So that, how can I tell you how much transportation is going to cost? I can't. I can give you a swag based on cities with similar population, how much it's costing them. But again, city council action determines how much it is. Okay, we talked about population growth. You are one of the fastest growing areas in the county. Is that good or bad? Depends on how you make measurements. It's good if you're bringing in high wealth class 2 or class 3 property. Business, for example. It's not so good if you're bringing in a lot of apartment buildings. They are class 2, but they're high density. And like in Hoover, there tends to be an awful lot of kids who are able to attend Hoover School because they're renting an apartment inside the city limits of Hoover. That's another planning and zoning issue that goes with the city council's responsibility. So, the city council and the city board of education would make decisions that either complement or adversely impact each other for the future, and they would have to be widely discussed and resolved as to, is that a good or bad thing? Generally, the red arrow shows that you do have a fairly good population, 5 to 9 years and 10 to 14. Then you have a high population in, say, 30 to 45 years. That's ideal. Those are people who are living here, have jobs, making money, and produce more tax revenue than they consume. You don't have a lot of old people here. What'd you do with them? Have they all moved away? That is a very positive thing because elderly have greater demands for city services. particularly fire and ambulance rescue, and so forth and so on. Plus, they tend to be very negative toward taxes. All right, so are demographics an issue? No. I do not see any problem with demographics. And we talk about English, just examples of other things we looked at. English as a language, medium house income, ADM in your school sites. By the way, the number of kids attending your school sites have nothing to do with the kids who live in Calera. It has to do with the transportation zone that Shelby County has created. So these are not all resident students. Condition of the school sites. I've said that Shelby County is a high resource county for taxation. Generally, the reports which are printed in detail for each school site in this manual are very favorable compared to statewide conditions of schools. I know that individuals of you may have particular things that you've identified that you wish could do better. But frankly, Shelby County has probably been an above-average steward of resources and spreading it to all school sites of the county. Question, ladies and gentlemen. In your current status, is the Shelby County Board of Education required to fairly share local tax revenues for instructional purposes and capital outlay? No. It's a political decision. If you were a city Board of Education, would you be guaranteed that your board would get their proportionate share of all the countywide resources? The answer is yes. So I have run across many times, like Fairhope, and they finally passed a 5 mil property tax but decided not to separate. Think about this. If the city of Calera passed a 5 mil property tax, city tax, dedicated it to the school sites, would that be a good thing? Probably yes. But what can the Shelby County Board of Education do? Oh, well now you have this $1 million coming in. We don't have to share with you as much of our countywide revenues coming in. So there is this distinct advantage of accountability and autonomy that a city board has that a county does not guarantee the school sites within a community. Debt. Is there debt to be assumed? Yeah. About $30 million of debt on buildings that have been constructed over the years here. Would you inherit that debt? Yes. You're going to inherit your share of the district tax, and the district tax is the one that's usually pledged for the payment of, they're not bonds, they're warrants. And that's another story that's described in there. The school warrants are like bonds. They act just like a bond, but they're not a bond, therefore they're legal. It's the County Board of Education. That is not a significant debt. The amortization tables for every debt issue of the Shelby County regarding school sites here is in the document, and a full amortization schedule of every debt that exists on school buses. Good news is every bus will be paid off in the next 3 years, and it's not a great deal of money. Chapter 6, student attendance. Well, we don't know. I've talked about that. So, we had to come up with a number of how many children could be served by law in the municipality of Calera, city of Calera. Well, the State Department of Education has a statewide student database that theoretically has the exact address, and not by zip code, but actually, do they live inside a city boundary or do they live outside? That data is submitted almost daily by the Shelby County Board of Education to the State Department of Education. It's updated constantly. So why wouldn't what the department has as a number set be the same thing as what Shelby County has as a number set? I cannot answer that question, but they differ. So we tried to make the best adjustment we could, and we came up with, we could probably have 3,273 students. And we took away the 337 that are in unincorporated areas. We found at least 105 students that are reported to be in virtual learning but live within the city of Calera. Question: if they want to come to your city schools, do you have to let them? Yeah. They have an entitlement. They're a resident. Are they going to want to come? I don't know. Well, how do you plan a budget if you don't know who's coming? You don't. No. And you have to make the best adjustments you can. And the interim period that a board is operating, if it's created, before final separation, you have appointed an attendance officer, and you are running a cross-check between actual property tax by residents and students by residents, and call exactly the ones who live within your community. I can't do that. I have no legal authority to ask those questions, nor can I find out how many special ed kids by unique disability that there are. That's private information. I can't do that. Can a Calera City Board do it? Absolutely. And their people that they appoint, the superintendent and attendance officer, yeah, those are the things that you can find out. You get to belong to the Alabama Association of School Boards, and a superintendent that you would hire belongs to the School Administrators, SSA, School Superintendents of Alabama. They have an insight, plus you have direct liaison with the State Department of Education. So there are things that you can get to find out that I, as an outside citizen, simply cannot do. So we also found that there is reported to be 54 students who live in Calera but are attending school in Alabaster and Pelham. I don't know. I have to assume the state's got the records, and Pelham and Alabaster have reported those to the state. Will those kids come to schools here? I don't know. And lastly, we get the net 3,126. We take the Shelby County 147. We came up with a number of 3,273. That's virtually what you have right now, but that's assuming that virtual students and the students that are attending other municipalities would also exercise their required attendance, their accessibility to your school system. Okay, moving on along. Oh. James, I don't know this one. I got it fine. No, it's a joke. I've done this so many years. I have mine, and I know right when my finger's in the right place. If I don't look at this finger at the right place. State law requires that teacher units, which are the basis, the currency of the foundation program, has to be placed where they are earned. By school site, based on prior year ADM, based on grade that each of those children are in, because there are different divisors or weights for each grade. The legislature is being seduced by the idea that we don't need to do that anymore. We just need to give a flat dollar amount and let the local schools decide how they're going to spend it and where they're going to spend it. This is accountability if we guarantee you a divisor of 14.5 for first grade at school site, Calera Elementary. It doesn't matter whether it's your board governing it or the Shelby County board that's governing. That's what's got to happen. If you get unrestricted revenues, that means your board decides which school, which grade, which program do they want to spend the money on. And if they want to get rid of a few teachers in kindergarten and first grade, they can do it. With the current program, you cannot do it. And there's at least 20 employees currently funded from local funds, because Shelby County has to put all of the foundation money, including the state share and the local share, in each individual school site where earned. So you've got accountability and guarantee that the money is being properly used. Teacher units are expensive, over $100,000 a piece, and the percent of salary is like 38 to 37%. Compensation is expensive. What is a motivation for individuals to take a part-time job as school bus driver? Get health insurance. So that is a very important aspect of our state program by providing these fringe benefits and a guaranteed minimum state salary schedule. Okay, you pay 54 mills in Calera. There are general authorizations for municipal and local taxes. You pay 10 within the city. You pay a total of 9% of sales use tax. And your flexibility to levy collect taxes at any rate is the advantage of your municipality. Now, quickly, equalization formulas say that we're designing how much money we think should be in Calera Elementary School. That's easy. The hard part is, who's going to pay for it? How much of your local taxes would be required to do that? That's required local effort. And how much of it will come from the state? Politicians will find it much more convenient to increase the allocation plan dollar amount and say, look what wonderful things we've done. But you're going to have to not put in 10 mills anymore, you're going to have to put in 15 or 20. So you shift the cost burden to help pay for what should have been a state function. That will be a critical issue in the next legislative session as well. I'm going to skip over this because I've just let me do this one. The divisor for this year, current year, we're in 14.25 to 1, K through 3. But that includes funding for special needs children and career technical education. There is statutorily required, statutorily required that 5% of the students be special ed kids, and they require 2.5 times per child expenditure that does a regular education child. And you've got to take some of those 14.25 teacher units and pull them out and have them teach a special ed class. If your board decides to form, it's going to be very important that they get to understand this very quickly. Because the net effect is, after you pull out 11.11% of the teacher units for special ed purposes, now your class size is 16 to 1. This is one of the gripes I have with the current foundation program, which I wrote in 1995, the first step, because it's what Governor Bob James wanted. He wouldn't consider our next two formulas, which included weights and external to divisors add-ons for special ed and career tech. But anyway, all right, I'm going to kind of flip on ahead. You should plan to offer the same salary schedule that is the state minimum and whatever Shelby County gives as an additional supplement to the state salary schedule. It will probably be in your separation agreement that the board will have to design a salary schedule for every professional and support employee. We've kind of talked about this. Here's good news for you. The child count of children with exceptionalities. Total disabilities is the word that is used in IDEA, the federal program, Individual with Disabilities Education Act. There are 13 of them. Shelby County has 13.87% of total student population in that category. I got the wrong one again. I'm sorry. Let me go back. The state average is 13.87%. The Shelby County is 13.68%, about the same. So there is not an overburden of special ed, most likely, in your schools. The neat thing about being in Shelby County, gifted are a separate category by state law. 27.83% of students in Shelby County are said to be gifted. Only 21.47% in the state. So I take special ed off of the issue of you having an overburden of special education needs in Calera. All right, I'm going to skip the line item appropriations to the State Department of Education that you'll get your share of. And if you'll notice, we do provide extra money for advanced placement, Children's First Trust Fund for the disabilities, English language learners, that's a disability, gifted students, which is an exceptionality here, high needs special education, high school academic and financial improvement, school-based mental health, special ed behavior analysis, and deaf hearing preschool special ed. We do fund a lot of those things. I can't tell you how much of that money you would get this year because I have no way of knowing how many eligible students that there were. So I have been forced to understate a little bit your state appropriation. Okay, we've talked about AD of ratio. If you form, the state superintendent will say Calera City Schools deserves a certain percent of all countywide revenues. He sends this letter to your county tax collector, and that's the amount that they have to, the rate they have to distribute. The same thing will go to Chilton County. So those are guaranteed. Good thing about Shelby County is they're very low on administrative services costs, only 2.06%. Whereas all public school systems in the state are at 3.8%. Chilton County, we've talked about it, 10. You are up here in the upper right at the blue arrow, and your city limits will be the tax district in that county. And we've talked about the respective rates. And let's go down now to what you can expect here. Expected ad valorem revenues from Chilton County. $12 million from the 16 mil countywide ad valorem tax would be your earnings based on the 3273 count in students. Then non-ad valorem revenues, mainly driven by the county sales tax, you could expect another $2.3 million. And all sorts of other revenues, which are too many to go over, another $3 million. So if we add it up, all in all, you should get state appropriation in the 20 million range. You should get $16+ million from county revenues, and you would get the yield of your school tax district, Shelby County, Chilton, Calera, Shelby, Calera, Chilton. And we'll give you your aggregate number set. And we've discovered that y'all are making contributions on behalf of these school sites, but they're not shown in the budget. Theoretically, according to GASB, generally accepted accounting principles, it should be. But I give this to you right here. This $2.7 million you're showing for 23 of on-behalf contributions. If that were put in a city council appropriation to your city board, rather than you just paying for it and Shelby County not recognizing it in the books, your local revenues will increase fairly significantly. 147 kids we've talked about. Total ad valorem revenues of Chilton County, $52,000. That is not much money, but that's your ADM ratio against a very weak millage rate and a very weak tax base. $341,000. Chilton County schools would not exist without sales tax money. And I go on and on and on. I'm wearing all of y'all out. Debt to be assumed. Is it excessive debt load? Yes. It's not excessive, but yes, it is a little bit greater per student than Shelby County is paying. Caveat. If you decide to create a city board, one of the things in plotting what your future enrollment may be, will you run into the need for a issuance of debt to build new classroom space? That's only your board is able to make that kind of assumption, because they will decide how many kids are going to attend. We'll have predictions, demographics of growth, and you'll have an idea of what's coming in the future. Conclusions. Shelby County has about 15.8 thousand per kid in revenues, federal, state, local, and we're predicting about 13,790 for what is shown for this number of students, 3273, by the formulas that are in existence, and they're all in the document. So you're short. You will not have the same resources. And the big part of that is the city of Calera assessed valuation, the value of a mill per student is less here than it is countywide. The counter of that is you have lower cost housing, which makes it more possible for people to live here and have families. So what can I say about that? Well, I can make some adjustments. You're going to benefit on the chargeback, require local effort. Some other monies, I think probably you're about $1,000 per kid short of having the same resources. Now the moral decision that comes, if you're $1,000 per kid short, that's about $3 million. What would not be funded that may be funded by Shelby County here at these 4 school sites? And again, that's why a proposed board would need to get a chief school finance officer. There are retirees who would be very willing to come and can have the accounting software and get into this in much greater detail than I can. Timeline. This may be a bummer for you. Let's say I presented the feasibility in June of this year. If you decide to proceed, I would recommend that you get a very well-prepared school board attorney under retainer to operate for the school board. And then in July, the board actually is appointed, and you start trying to hire an interim superintendent. Could be a retiree, could be someone who's unhappy where they've been and they're looking for another job in another place, and it would be fun to start. September, Chief School Finance Officer. I cannot, Kelly, tell you how complicated in the last 12 years it's all good. We have got constantly, the legislature has new line items, special line items of something that a legislator thinks it helps him politically and it helps schools. That complicates the accounting system. Oh, I'm going to show you how much federal money has been dumped into the state. It's just gotten to be, the reporting, the books are extremely complicated. And December, technology. Let me give you the bad news about that. Each local board of education now has to become a complete data center for technology. You've got to link each school, you've got to link classrooms, and you've got to link to the state to report. It is expensive. And James can give you an idea about that, but in the cost we're going to come up with a little bit. Round figure, about $1 million to get all the equipment set up, unless the city has in-kind contributions they can make. And I don't know, I just have to give you a placeholder. That is about a standard number. And moving ahead, when we get down to April, you need somebody, well, March, curriculum instruction, permanent superintendent, chief school finance officer, federal programs director, special education director, career tech director, director of student services, transportation supervisor. What has the board decided to do on that? Who's going to pay the salary of these people? City council will have to make an appropriation to do that because you're not separated. You're not getting any federal, state, or local money yet. Are you with me? I'm not happy about it, but I just want to make sure I'm not glossing over that. You understand. That's part of the significant cost of getting over the hump to achieve financial separation where you get financial monies coming in to assist. Then, child nutrition program director. And in July, you achieve the first fiscal separation. Do you know what the scholastic year is? July 1, June 30. State fiscal year is October the 1st, September 30th. They're out of sync by 3 months. So when you separate, when you take control of the schools in July of 2025, you're going to accrue payroll of 12-month employees, 11-month employees, and 10-month employees for at least 3 months until you can get into October of the next fiscal year, for which there will be a state appropriation that you will be eligible to participate in and participate in local revenues. City council appropriation, that's totally your business. It has nothing to do with the fiscal years. So that's why we say August the 31st, 2025 would be the last month Shelby County would pay the teachers at those school sites. But wait a minute. You're going to have to open schools at the very end of August, and you're going to have to pay all those teachers and support personnel, school bus drivers, for the month of September out of your pocket. It's not right. It's what it is. I was asked to draft legislation years ago to change our fiscal year to a July 1 for both fiscal and scholastic. The legislature, it's too complicated for them to even think about doing. But that is a real downside to the operation of public education in Alabama. Now, pro forma budget. What do I think it would cost? Well, if you separate this year, July, August, September, you operate the board, superintendent, probably part-time. For this fiscal year, let's say $75,000. That's not much money. That's not a big deal. All right? If you continue and begin to hire these people who have to be in place and assisting the board in formulating the academic and support programs that you've got to have in the schools. Finance officer, technology, O&M, federal programs, C&I, special ed, career tech, student services, transportation department, and child nutrition. And federal programs are reimbursed in arrears. In other words, you got to buy the food and then bill the federal government and hopefully get a reimbursement check the next month. So all of that stuff adds up, and for all of 2025 up until June the 30th, we're looking at about $2 million more. That's because of all the positions. And now the real money comes. July you take over. And you've got to fund all of these offices, and then at the very bottom in September, $2.5 million to make payroll for all of the teachers and support employees. Again, you're not getting any money at that point. So, that's a transient, that's a one-time expenditure. Is it right? No, the state should have done better than this. When Pelham, Alabaster separated, when Orange Beach and Gulf Shores, they all faced this thing, this situation. It wasn't that much money 15 years ago. But you think about the inflation on teacher salaries, general administrator salaries, compensation costs. You got to pay insurance on the buildings. You got to pay fuel costs, electricity. It's you're picking up the whole operation of schools. Is that a disqualifier from the city doing it? No. But I just got to lay out to you, that's what other cities have faced. And when Gulf Shores and Orange Beach separated, it didn't matter to them. The cities had such big operating reserve funds, they were fine. It wasn't a big deal. That's also why, in most of the studies that I've done in cities that have separated, they've realized that they need some additional revenue. The quicker, if you choose to get additional revenue, the quicker you get it, you're putting it aside for a year later when the big costs occur. You're laying by for the hard times. And there are a lot of people who can tell you about that. Last thing I want to hit you with is that all the federal COVID money that's coming in to 3 different plans totals $3.137 billion of additional money that has been thrown into local school systems budgets. That is why it is almost impossible for me to do as valid a comparison of what your resources would be if you were separated this year compared to other school systems, because they've been polluted, their numbers set with all this additional money that is one time. If it's not obligated by September the 30th, it reverts. So it's going to get spent. The other thing that has happened is extraordinary education trust fund revenues. In 2021, we had $1.3 billion left over in the education trust fund. The next year we had almost $3 billion left over. 2023 we had $2.5 billion left over. For 2024, we're not through yet, but it's estimated by the governor to be about $1.5 billion. And for next year, $8.26 billion. Is the legislature going to make it easy and provide funding for a city who wants to start up for transition costs? I doubt it. Does the state make an annual appropriation to charter schools for startup costs? Yes. So, maybe there could be sought some additional money to assist a startup. The question is political support within a community versus the political support of the county political structure. Is it a burden to Shelby County for you to separate? Yeah. It's going to have to be a lot of readjustment of their transportation, which kids go where. It won't be simple. It never is. On the other hand, I will tell you this like I've told people in Baldwin County. If the growth is in Alabaster and Pelham, by taking those kids away from the county, and as those kids' numbers increase with new annexation and economic development, the capital outlay problem is the cities and the city school board. You with me? Your problem is if you separate and you do get additional growth, you've got to provide for those additional capital needs. The county has been relieved of the financial obligation for capital outlay of the financial operation of the cities, which are revenue generators and which are population generators. So, all in all, it's a mixed bag. It depends on politically what your community, it's a political decision, what you think is worthwhile to attempt for the long-term growth of the city. And that's where every city that I've worked with always has been saying, well, where can we be in 10 years? Research data was done by an economic forecaster. His name is Kayvon Darabi. He's a state expert. He's done studies for some other cities, Gardendale for one, which show that every time a municipality, a city, forms their own separate school system, their growth rate and their wealth increases. In other words, you build it and they will come. The downside is it a financial obligation that the municipality would like to undertake? All right, let me look at my watch clock. My dad was a watchmaker, and he would be ashamed of me. I never was, as a little kid, I always had watches and nobody else in school had them. I don't wear a watch anymore. I've taken a lot of your time. You have been most kind to be polite. I haven't seen too many scowls or anger. City Council members, thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to come and be with you. And as I've told Seth and Kelly, I'll be available to answer any number of questions. And kind of the ball comes to your court now. There are no significant disadvantages, liabilities, preventing your school system, if created, for being successful that we have found in the most careful screening of all financial, tax data, ad valorem wealth, sales tax information, demographics. There is no disqualifier. The qualifier is separating within the political construct of the future of the city of Clear. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I appreciate all of you coming. I apologize to you for what I've done to you. But I used to teach a finance training course for new superintendents, state mandated, 8 hours for 3 days. So they didn't like me very much. Ladies and gentlemen, would you like to ask me a question? I see shock, fatigue.
We're going to actually counsel to go ahead and present your question to Mr. Hart if you have any now. Anybody?
You will have this full PowerPoint that y'all can go through. It goes through chapter by chapter, it gives examples, gives a little bit of narrative, and it gives a page number where it's found in your report. That'll help. Y'all have got my phone number and my email address.
So no question from anyone? Thank you again for presenting.
Thank you very much for allowing me this
To us.
opportunity. And I thank these people who are kind enough to get out on a Monday night and be abused like this.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Let's see where we are. I think that was the last thing on that agenda. No one have any?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
So be it. Thank you. Thank you.